it's lots of reasons, lots of causes, lots of factors. It's not just as simple as eating less. It can be very complex. Of course, heredity can play a role. Gut hormones, as Dr. Gale told us about this morning. Overeating, sugary drinks. Has anyone ever known someone to lose weight just from stopping sodas and juices? It works. It's true. Inactivity, smoking. Of course, some medications can cause obesity, like prednisone and antipsychotics. Lack of sleep. Simply sleeping 8 hours a night, you can lose weight. Just that in and of itself. Why? Stress. Your body has to rest. Your brain has to rest. Hormone dysfunction. So that could be thyroid hormone, but also estrogen. And women who are perimenopausal and menopausal, that can cause increase in weight. Environmental is a big one. So if I had a dime for every patient that told me that, everyone in my family's big. We're just big. Oh, everybody. We're big bones. We're big bones. And so is that a heredity thing, or is it just that most people in your family eat poorly? And that's just been passed on generation to generation? Or is it your culture that you eat certain things and you eat a certain way? And then psychological. So binge eating, also bulimia, stress eating, trauma. People who have PTSD and traumatic things that happen in their life sometimes use food for comfort, and that can cause obesity. So obesity impacts nearly every organ system in your body. It can cause depression, of course, strokes, heart attacks, diabetes, high blood pressure, metabolic syndrome. It can cause obstructive sleep apnea, asthma, fatty liver disease, which can lead to cirrhosis or liver failure, gallbladder disease, GYN issues such as abnormal or irregular menstrual cycles, infertility, PCOS, arthritis. That's a big one. Our bodies, God didn't make our bodies to be obese. And so when you have too much weight on your joints, it wears out the cartilage. And so you can have arthritis in your back just from belly weight. Arthritis, of course, in your hips, in your knees. Obesity can also affect your skin, gout, cancer. That's a big one too. Obesity is associated with breast cancer, uterine, colon, esophageal, pancreatic, kidney, and prostate cancer. And then overall premature death. You can just die from all causes or any cause because of obesity. Okay, so the treatment, diet and exercise, medications, psychotherapy, and surgery. For the purposes of this presentation, we would just focus on diet and exercise and medications. Okay, so who remembers this old food pyramid? So at the top you have your fats, oils, sweets that you're supposed to use sparingly, and then the second tier would be like your dairy and meats and processed meats and everything they have there. And then the next we have vegetables and fruits, and then the bottom they have this big huge category with all the carbs. And it doesn't necessarily say which carbs are good and bad, but we know that anything that's white, we're supposed to be converting it to wheat and whole grain. So there's actually new dietary guidelines that's coming out this year, at the end of the year. They announced this at the end of last year, in December. So 2025 U.S. Dietary Guidelines Committee released their scientific report. So physicians and scientists are now starting to realize what we've known in the Seventh-day Adventist Church for over 100 years. And medicine is actually starting to support this now. So this is huge, like this will be a nationwide thing. So there will be major changes in the protein section. So in order of importance, it will no longer have meat and dairy at the top of the protein section. It will be beans, peas, and lentils. Next. That's amazing, isn't it? That's awesome. Next will be nuts, seeds, soy. Next, seafood. Last would be meat, poultry, eggs, and dairy. So that you'll see more of that throughout the year, but I think by the end of the year they're supposed to be releasing that officially, but I thought that was wonderful. Okay, so why the change? Plant-based proteins are associated with lower levels of saturated fats. They have more vitamins, nutrients, minerals, more fiber, and we've talked about that in church before. So you can get fuller off less food. Of course, it will help the gut microbiome as well. Plant proteins are associated with a reduction in cancer risk, weight loss. Have you guys ever met someone that converted from carnivore to vegan and how they drop weight so fast? It's just that simple, just converting to plant protein. And then also a reduction in risk of hypertension, diabetes, strokes, heart attacks, and all-cause mortality. So help, how do I convert from meat to plant protein? I think, first of all, you definitely have to change your mindset, and this also goes along with what Dr. Bryce was saying, that you do have to have faith and pray about it, because it's hard. But in my family, I grew up in definitely a family that loved their meat. Have you guys ever heard that phrase of "where's the beef" from that commercial from the 80s? I'm telling my age now. But that's how my family, they still are to a certain degree. But, you know, they look at your plate, and if you don't have meat on your plate, they say, "Where's the meat?" And so you really have to change that mindset. It's just completely switch. You do not have to have meat on your plate. So what you want to do is start swapping out the meat. Just start 2-3 days a week, and then increase that. For example, instead of having chicken, have your favorite bean, pea, or legume. Instead of having eggs in the morning, you can have scrambled tofu. If tofu is not your thing, that's okay. Old-fashioned oats, not the oats that's in the packet, okay? It has to be the old-fashioned stuff that takes a little bit longer to cook. And then you can add walnuts or almonds for a little bit extra protein boost for that. Instead of like chicken on a salad or something, just have nuts, okay? So a sample dinner: chickpeas, whole grain rice, broccoli, carrots. Simple. That's dinner. Yes, that's right. Thank you, sis. And then if that's not enough, the people who join our weight loss challenge every year, I always encourage, if you're still hungry after that, get more broccoli and carrots. I mean, I've never known anyone to be obese off of broccoli and carrots and vegetables. Okay, so add more of that to your plate, and you'll get that fullness that you want. But you also never want to be full. Okay, you never want to be like you're about to pop. All right, you want to stop before that. So it's also important, please do not swap meat for more vegetables. Okay, just because you're converting to vegetarianism or veganism, you must have that plant protein. If you don't, you will lose muscle mass, and that's not the weight you want to lose. You want to keep your muscle mass. Okay, I added this in here. Where's Brother Tony? I added this for Brother Tony, and he's not here, because he always asks me about fish. So what's wrong with fish? So most fish now is actually not caught in the wild. It's actually, they're born into fish farms, okay? So think about a huge container of water with fish, okay? Kind of like a huge fish tank. Okay, so think about if you've ever had a fish tank. What are the fish doing in there? They're pooping, they got food particles, it gets algae, it gets dirty. You have to clean it, right? Same thing happens in these fish farms, okay? So these fish, they're overcrowded, okay? They have poop, it's not cleaned, okay? So then this can lead to a high level of pollution, all right? So this can decrease the oxygen levels and then increase harmful algae. It's overcrowded, so the fish can get diseases very easily, all right? And then the farmers have to pump them full of antibiotics to try to reduce these diseases, which contribute to antibiotic resistance in the fish, but also in us, because we eat the fish. So any chemicals, pollutants, toxins in the water is absorbed by the fish and into us. So me personally, I probably have had fish one time in the past year, just because I found out about this and I said, you know, if I'm going to eat fish, it has to be caught in the wild, but that's really hard to know. In most of the grocery stores, it's all farmed, in the restaurants as well. So, all right, so exercise. Okay, so walking is proven over and over again. Just walk. It's the best form of exercise. It's free. So how do you start? 20 or 30 minutes a day. Actually, I read an article this morning that said even 5 minutes is better than nothing. I read that before I came to church. Just coincidentally, it just popped up on my news feed. So you can start as low as you want, okay? But you want to try to be consistent. You have to make it brisk. A slow walk while you're on the phone or whatever, that's not enough. You have to get your arms moving, get your heart rate up. You want to increase that to 30 minutes 5 times a week, and then further if you can. At some point, you want to add some weight-bearing exercise, so start, lifting some small weights. And what this will do is help to prevent bone loss, build muscle, improve balance and posture, which will help prevent falls. And then, of course, it helps your heart, and then it can reduce pain, like arthritis pain. That's one of the recommendations for arthritis, is to actually exercise. Okay, so medications. So for most prescription medicines, there is a certain criteria that has to be met for the doctor to prescribe it to you. You have to have a BMI of 30 or more, or a BMI of 27 with another comorbidity like hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, etc. So I'm not going to talk about the different neurotransmitter pathways and everything, but basically there's 2 prescription medicines, phentermine topiramate, which is called Qsymia, and that one's going to suppress the appetite and contribute to fullness. And then there's also naltrexone, bupropion, which is called Contrave. This also suppresses hunger and cravings. We know about dopamine and everything from before, from Dr. Bryce. But also the naltrexone portion helps to reduce the addictive potential of food. And then there is one over the counter. It's called, the trade name over the counter is Ally or Orlistat. It reduces fat absorption. And there is a side effect. Because it reduces fat absorption, you can get diarrhea. So the injectables, the arrows got kind of messed up, but I'm not going to go through all of this because honestly, Dr. Gale talked about this earlier today with GLP-1s. So Ozempic and Wegovy operate through the GLP-1 system. And then Mounjaro and Zepbound operate through the GLP-1 system and another system called GIP. What they have found is that GIP levels are very elevated in people who are obese and people who have diabetes. And so what this medicine does is it goes and basically shuts that hormone down. So, hormones. All right. So the overall effect from these medicines is that it's going to reduce your appetite, so you eat less. It is a subcutaneous injection, which means it's right under the skin. It's once a week. So Ozempic and Wegovy, you can lose about 15% of body weight. And then the Zepbound Mounjaro, you can lose up to 25% of body weight because it's stronger, because it uses both pathways, the GLP-1 and the GIP. The most common side effects, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and on the flip side, constipation, fatigue, headache, dizziness, abdominal pain, injection site redness, etc. And then there's certain people who can't use it at all, of course. So my takeaway, once you start medicines like this, it's difficult to stop, all right? And that's because your weight returns when you stop it. And most people have to stay on these medicines for years just to maintain that weight. Why? Because they never really learn what to do to keep the weight off with diet and exercise. So my advice, to me, there's nothing wrong with these medications. Of course, I prescribe these medicines all the time. But don't rely solely on the medication, okay? Make sure you're incorporating plant proteins, less animal protein, drinking water, and exercise. And then once you get your weight loss jump started with the medication, you already know what to do as far as keeping the weight off, and you can wean off the medicine and be successful. And I think that's it, yes.
I'd like to thank Dr. Lisa for the clear information about obesity. If you do have any questions about obesity, please keep it, and at the end of all the speakers, you will get your questions answered. And the next one is going to be Brother Ford Cassie. He's born and raised in Central Florida, has about 31 years healthcare experience. Is a cardiovascular services director, registered cardiovascular invasive specialist, Bachelor of Art from Ashford University, Master of Business Administration from University of Central Florida, member of the Alliance of Cardiovascular Professionals, and member of the American College of Healthcare Executives. So Brother Casey has about 15 minutes to talk about the heart disease, which is the leading cause of death in the United States.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So hopefully I'll take only 14 minutes instead of 15. So and I was looking at Brother Gibbs and Sister Gibbs. They can get up here and actually teach this for me, right? Yes, you can. So we actually we're in the same field, Brother Gibbs and I, and his Sister Gibbs. Doing it for a long time. But again, how surprising it is, cardiovascular disease remains the leading cause of death globally, which is insane. You would think the big C, cancer, would be the leading cause, but it's not. It affects a lot of people annually, accounting for 32% of the deaths annually. Cardiovascular disease encompasses a range of conditions affecting the heart and blood vessels, including coronary disease, heart attacks, strokes, and hypertension. Understanding cardiovascular disease is critical for public health and medical practice, given its significant impact in illness and mortality. You said down, right? There it is. Globally, approximately 17.9 million people died from cardiovascular disease in 2019. Which is a lot of people, representing 32% of the global deaths. In U.S. statistics, according to American Heart Association, about 697,000 Americans died from heart disease in 2020. Cardiovascular disease remains the leading cause of death in the U.S., which is really unfortunate. Cardiovascular disease affects people of all ages, and I'll go over that later in this presentation, but risk factors increase with age. Certain populations, including African Americans, Hispanics, are unfortunately hit harder than most. Coronary artery disease. So narrowing of the coronary artery often leading to heart attacks, and that's what we see in the cath lab setting each and every day. Heart failure, a condition in which the heart does not pump blood effectively. Unfortunately, that happens. So over time, and I give the analogy, so like hypertension, for instance. So if your blood pressure remains chronic, like at 190 over 100, imagine that the left ventricle, which pumps the amount of blood out, has a pump against that valve, with the aortic valve. So if the pressure in the aortic valve is 220, that left ventricle has to pump a little bit extra harder just to get the blood out and circulated. If it does that over and over again, guess what? The muscle, just like on a Schwarzenegger, it gets bigger and bigger, but the heart that gets bigger isn't effective. It's just floppy. So imagine the bodybuilder who walks around can't move their muscle. Same thing with the heart, it just can't move. It's so big, what you call cardiomyopathy. So a big heart is not effective at all. Arrhythmias, so irregular heartbeats that can lead to complications, stroke, a sudden loss of brain function due to interrupted blood supply. So there's two methods of risk factors. So there's the you can't modify these, basically. Age, everybody gets older. You can't modify that, right? You can't go backwards. And family history, which is a big factor in cardiovascular disease. Now, the ones you can modify, and to what Dr. Bryce spoke about earlier, high blood pressure. That you can help modify by doing the right things. High cholesterol, elevated levels can lead to basically calcific arteries in itself. Smoking, significant increases in heart risk disease as well. Diabetes, poorly controlled diabetes is linked to increased cardiovascular risk. Obesity, you've heard that often today and every day. Excessive body weight contributes to various risk factors as well. Physically inactive, lack of exercise increases cardiovascular disease. Again, you've heard many times walking. People think I have to go out and run a marathon. Walking is a simple exercise that helps you tremendously. And your diet. Diets high in saturated fats, trans fats, sodium, sugar can contribute to heart disease. Prevention strategies, so lifestyle. So encouraging a heart-healthy diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins, regular physical activity, and smoking cessation. So again, our goal as healthcare providers is to make sure we're providing the education to everyone about how to reduce the chances. And it's very simple. Treatment options, of course, you can take your blood pressure medication, statins for controlling your cholesterol, or antiplatelets, which control irregular heart rates and everything else, and reduce your chances of stroke. A couple of things that we do in the surgical area, in treatment-wise of cardiovascular disease, and we see many different people, unfortunately. We can place stents or balloons to open the artery. We can do coronary bypass surgery, again, basically replacing the arteries itself, or implanting a pacemaker or any of devices if you have a rhythm issue. So going into this, so there's a misperception that, unfortunately, I have to be old to have coronary artery disease. That's a myth, unfortunately. Or I have to be obese. Now, I've seen skinny individuals with cardiovascular disease. So I have a couple pictures I'm going to go over and show you of some live people that came into our lab. So this is a 69-year-old male. Oh, sorry. I'm just talking away and not even clicking. There we go. So there's a picture. So this is the right coronary artery, one of the major arteries that runs off the right side of the heart. So this is a 69-year-old male that arrived to our cath lab via MS, complaining of sudden onset of chest pain and shortness of breath. So as you can see, the picture to your left is a totally occluded right coronary artery. See how the flow is? It stops. The right side is where we put a stent. So that cessation of blood flow in that artery that feeds the bottom of the heart, if that blood flow is not supplied or not fixed, that bottom of the heart dies. And we know that, and Herbie knows as well, dead meat doesn't beat. So eventually, honestly, it doesn't. So after that the blood supply has been stopped in that bottom part of the heart, that muscle has now been necrotic and dead. You don't get it back. This is a 45-year-old female, history of diabetes, ongoing tobacco abuse, presented Oh, yeah. So again, 45-year-old female, history of diabetes, ongoing tobacco abuse, presented in ED with chest pain and dyspnea. Again, young female, 45 years old. I think everybody in here is probably 45 at least. Yeah, with increased risk factors. So again, you see the left coronary artery, left ascending artery. That's a nub at the very top on the left, and then the fix is on the right, where it's completely fixed with a stent and balloon. This is a 39-year-old. So it just gets younger and younger. 39-year-old female with no past cardiac history arrives to the ER with chest pain, unfortunately. So this is, again, is a right coronary artery, and you see that her artery is completely blocked halfway down. After we went in with a standard balloon, opened it back up, you see the perfusion is now pacified, is better. So again, my point is, age is just a number. So I think the youngest I've seen a 22-year-old with coronary artery disease. And you would think, and that's misperception, is I'm young, I can do anything I want, anything I want. No, you can't, unfortunately. And unfortunately, a 22-year-old had a life history. His dad, his uncle, all had heart disease young. So unfortunately, it hit him, so he needed coronary bypass surgery at a 22-year-old age. Imagine that, which is very unfortunate. So yeah, very, very distant. So other things that we do in our area, for patients who have aortic valve stenosis or aortic valve that are completely not working. So we have a device called TAVR. So it's an artificial valve we put in, actually through the groin. So there's a time of the day that we used to have to open patients up on the table with coronary, like actually surgery itself. But now there's a less invasive way that we do it through the groin artery. So we take a catheter through the femoral artery all the way up to the aorta and actually implant this aortic valve within probably 2 hours. So the patient is usually discharged within 24 hours after that. So again, how technology has advanced tremendously over time. It's amazing. Same thing with the mitral valve as well. If your mitral valve is stenotic or diseased, we go in the same process with a catheter and this mitral valve clip, and actually clip the mitral valve. Over time, the mitral valve's leaflets should open and close correctly. For patients who have issues, their mitral valve doesn't open and close correctly, so put a clip on the end of the actual leaflets percutaneously. So again, that helps the patient. Again, same process, we go in, clip it, patient's discharged within 24 hours. And the Watchman procedure. So this is another thing that patients who have high risk of strokes, who have, in every person, there's a left atrial appendage in your artery, in your arterial artery there, in the atrium itself. So again, why it's there, I have no idea. But this appendage in your atrium, over time, blood sits there and basically clots. Especially if AFib itself, blood in the atrium just clots off. So again, we have an umbrella that we put into the appendage itself to kind of close off that little appendage so that no blood can actually form in there. Because what happens over time is, fortunately, patients who have AFib especially, blood sits in that little area and clot goes up to the brain, and guess what? It causes a stroke. So this was a great advice to help prevent those patients who are high risk for strokes in itself. So again, same process, we go in, put the appendage across into the little appendage area itself, pull the catheter out, patient goes home within 24 hours. Very seamless procedure. So again, technology has really advanced, but the bottom line is, you've heard many, many times with Dr. Bryce and the rest of this great team, we can do things on the front end to help mitigate all these things from happening. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Do you want to prevent cardiovascular disease? Your questions for Dr. Lisa and Brother Ford. The next speaker is going to talk about menopause.
Is it working? Happy New Year, everyone. First I'm seeing everybody's my first Sabbath since 2025. All the best for 2025. Now, I've been asked to speak to you on menopause. And as I look around in the congregation, I think this is a very important topic for everyone because it affects all women directly, but it affects all men indirectly. And a lot of problems, amen, brother, occurs with menopause. Now, see that I have on the elder call with me. Have you ever wondered why so many things happens with our men? M-E-N, men. Dr. Bryce, you ever wonder? We hear about menstrual cramp, men. Menstrual cramp. Then we hear about mental illness, men again. We hear about menopause, menstruation. It's just the men are a problem, eh? So, I believe the person who started off with menopause, there's a saying in Jamaica that the men are saying that it must have been a woman who named menopause. Because what the men are saying is that women have put on men on a pause. So in Jamaica, we say, what do we say in Jamaica, Jamaicans? Nobody know? Menopause. Menopause, or men have been placed on a pause. I hope this is not what is happening here, with our Windermere family, okay? Don't put our men on a pause during menopause. Not at all. Now, menopause is a natural biological process that occurs in all women. It's natural, ladies. It's not a disease. It's a natural process. God made it so. And it usually begins typically around the age of 45 to 55, with a peak age of 51. Menopause marks the end of a woman's reproductive period and is characterized by a range of physical, listen, men, physical, emotional, and hormonal changes. Now, let me tell you what menopause is so we can get an idea of what is happening to our ladies. It is defined as the point of a woman's last menstruation, followed by 12 consecutive months of no period. So if a lady comes and says, "Doctor, 6 months now, I don't have any period, I'm on my change of life," they are not in menopause. So you must not have a period for 12 consecutive months to be classified as in being in menopause, right? Now, there are 3 stages of menopause. And I want my men to listen because it affects you indirectly. 3 stages of menopause. We have what you call the perimenopausal stage, and that is a transition stage before you enter into menopause. And this phase can last 2 to 10 years. So think about it. We say it's between 45 and 55. So 10 from 45 is how much? 35. So you have some persons as early as 35 who could be experiencing perimenopause. And during this period, you have fluctuations in your hormones, so the lady can have what you call irregular menstruation, right? Now, this period is critical because persons believe because they don't see their menses for 6 months, they are in menopause, but you can be fertile during this time. Then we have the second phase is what you call your menopausal phase. And of course, we say our last menses followed by 12 months. And then that is just a year to 2 years. And then we have our postmenopausal phase. And that phase is after your menopause. Now, the sad part for ladies is that this phase can last the rest of our lives. Isn't that sad? It is a frustrating thing. Now, there are, as we say, it's a natural cause, but there are some factors that can cause our menopause to come a little earlier than expected, right? And one such is our hormonal factors. Hormones, estrogens, can create early menopause. Genetic factors. As a matter of fact, always ask your mother ladies when they had menopause, because it has been shown that if your mother had menopause at an early age, you are also likely to experience menopause at an early age. Then there's environmental factors, such as your smoking, that damages your ovaries, and that can lead to menopause. Chemotherapy does it, radiation does it, of course. Surgery, if you remove your ovaries, you will enter menopause. Now, ladies, chronic stress, and so we don't want the men to stress us, because chronic stress can cause abnormality in your hormones and can lead to early menopause. Lifestyle factors, and Dr. Bryce would like to know that, because it has been shown that poor diet, lack of exercise, obesity, can lead to hormonal imbalances and can start early menopause. It's so important, diet and exercises, ladies and gentlemen, it is. And of course, we have medical conditions that we don't have a control over, thyroid disease, some autoimmune disease that can cause early menopause. Now, I want us to say amen. I know, Sister Ware, I know you'll say amen to these because we were talking about it. But I want those who don't know, there are some symptoms, some signs, some things a woman will tell you about and some things you'll see happening to a woman. When you see a lady in church and the AC is burning cool and everything's just going so cool and you see them start fanning, what is it? Hot flashes. So what happens, this lady just have a pastor saying, yes, Sister Cross, that's happening to you, yes. So we're in the air condition in church, and all of a sudden a sudden surge of heat catches us. And then you just see the lady start sweating and she start flush. That's all hot flush, and that's a very common one during menopause. And of course, the night sweats. I suffer from this. That one is terrible. So you wake up and the sweating is just happening and the air condition is on and I have the fan on. My husband is saying it's too cold, but I'm there sweating, I'm hot. Then all ladies will come to the doctor and they'll talk to us about, Doc, there's this dryness to my vagina. And not only the dryness, but the ladies will complain that they have what? Pain during sexual intercourse. That's because of menopause. We also, that the men will complain about, Brother Weir, that all of a sudden, Dion is so miserable. And her mood just going here and there. Yes, hormonal fluctuations will cause a mood change. So we have some swings. Today I'm the sweetest person. Tomorrow my husband will say, you're too miserable. That's part of the old menopausal symptom, along with anxiety. I suffer from that. And at times I feel so low, depressed. And there are some persons, and it has been shown that persons with a history of depression during menopause, this will even get worse. So we have to watch our ladies, gentlemen. Now, a part that we don't like, and maybe you don't have the problem, is the weight gain. Because the weight gain is not just looking sexy. The weight gain is having it in your midsection around the abdominal girth, and so ladies complain that they no longer have their cocoa bottle shape. They are now having this beer look, this total tummy that just won't go around. So, and there are a lot of symptoms, but one of the other things that you will find, and probably men will complain that the ladies no longer love them or the ladies don't want to do anything, is that ladies suffer from what? Decrease in their sex drive. While the man is virile and they are ready for everything, the woman is saying, I just don't feel that way. This is because the woman is going through menopause. And I'm telling you this, and I want us to be a part of it, because if we understand the process that is happening to our ladies, I think our men will better be able to cope with us to help us through this process, right? Now, how do we diagnose menopause? And just remember, these symptoms also occur in the perimenopause, the menopause, and the postmenopausal period, okay? So diagnosis is usually just asking the ladies about her symptoms. She tells you all of this that is happening and more. Of course, the doctor will take a history, and there are some laboratory testings that can be done to confirm our diagnosis. Now, there are several treatment options available, and that depends on the severity of one's symptoms, right? Some persons are so bad that they will have to get like hormone replacement therapy. And there are some persons, the depression and the psychosis is so bad that they have to go on antidepressants. And Sister Dion was telling me how difficult it was for her that she had to go on medication, and she said, I could tell you. So there are different things that you could do. Non-hormonal medications is also available. Now for the vaginal dryness, thank God there's lubricants. We have our moisturizers and some creams, and even some estrogen creams that you can use to help with elasticity and to also reduce that pain during sexual intercourse. And most importantly, that's something that everyone can do is our lifestyle changes. Good eating habits, well-balanced diet, your fruits, your vegetables, your whole grains, your water, exercise, again from the obesity, exercise. And I can tell you that my husband says I'm an exercise freak, but I find out that I can't sleep at night because of menopause. So I get up and count the stars. But when I go for my evening walks, I get a better sleep. So I can tell you from experience that sleeping does help with our symptoms. So try and get as much rest, exercise, and proper eating, okay? Now, I wanted to bring this across because I don't want this to happen in our church. Menopause has been associated with divorce. Can you imagine? If our men are not understanding what is happening and the woman is getting frustrated and quarreling and fussing, we are going to have fights. And there was a study that was done that showed that 73% of women surveyed believe menopause was a key factor in the breakdown of their marriage. Can you imagine? 73%. Also in that same study, 67% of the respondents reported an increase in domestic abuse and arguments during menopause. That is sad, eh? So it is important, ladies and gentlemen, for us to understand the process. It's a natural process. God made the body that way, but there are ways to deal with it. The survey highlighted, and this is what I want you to listen to now, the survey highlighted a concerning lack of understanding and support for women going through menopause. So these studies suggest that menopause has a significant factor in divorce, especially with certain stressors. We know the stress at work, the stress at home, the stress with our colleagues, that can create, even compound our problems. So we want to see how here at Windermere we can alleviate some of these problems that our women is facing. Now there's some old adage about menopause that we hear back home and in your country, from different countries, you might hear different things. We have heard the name change of life. Have you ever heard that one? Doctor, I'm going through my change of life. That's what they're going through, menopause. There are some persons who call it the big M. Like what they call cancer, the big C. Menopause is called the big M. And there's another one that is called the curse. And when I read on it, I actually learned that there are some cultures who believe when a woman enters menopause, they're actually having a curse from God. Wow. And that's how they viewed. But the saying I embrace is that menopause is the second spring. Menopause is the second spring. Because this phase offers a more positive perspective to a woman's life, full of possibilities and growth. I just want to remind you, ladies, that there are about 6,000 women who go through menopause in the US every single day. So you are not alone. There are 6,000 women who go through menopause. But even though we might have our support groups, we will have our medications, because it's a biological process that is natural, we might experience some psychosocial effects. When that come upon me, I usually turn to the Word of God, because medication, everything else just frustrates. I usually encourage even my patients to turn to the Word of God. So if you feel physically or emotionally drained because you're putting on the weight, or you just feel so down, you feel irritable, I usually encourage you to turn to the word of God. Isaiah 40 verse 29 says, He, God, gives strength to the weary and increase the power of the weak. Isn't that powerful? He gives us strength. And if you feel like your self-esteem is low at some point because this surge is happening to you, go to Psalm 139 verse 14. You, all my ladies, are fearfully and wonderfully made. Amen. So lady, remember, my ladies, you're God's special species. So when you walk with God, and God walk with you. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson, for that awesome presentation. Please, audience, I hope you're scratching down all your questions for the panel discussion. This is a lot of information, but I know we all have questions, so remember, save them. Our next presentation will be on cancer screening. It will be done by Dr. Arlene Gale. Dr. Arlene Gale is known to most of us here, but her bio is Dr. Arlene Gale is a native of Jamaica and is a physician over 30 years. She received a Bachelor of Medicine and a Bachelor of Surgery degree from the University of the West Indies. She is a diplomat of the American Board of Internal Medicine and is board certified in internal medicine, geriatric medicine, hematology, oncology. She currently specializes in malignant hematology, stem cell transplant, and cellular therapy at the Adventist Hospital in Orlando. Dr. Gale is married to Carl Gale for over 32 years, and together they have 2 children, Josh and Gabby. She loves the Lord. Dr. Gale loves the Lord and has dedicated her life to serving Him for 44 years. Her passion is promoting and living a healthy lifestyle. She's the co-leader of the health ministry and an elder in training at the Windermere Seventh-day Adventist Church. 2 new years to Dr. Gale.
Thank you, Sister Daphne. So we turned the table a little bit, and now we're talking about cancer screening, and I think from then on we'll probably talk about more about cancer. So cancer screening is so important that the government spend a lot of money doing it every year. They're the United States Task Preventative Force that will do lots of study, and it will not consider profitable to do a cancer screening unless you're having you're saving life by about 25%. So if the number of people saved or lives saved is less than 25%, then the cancer screening does not make sense. The thing about cancer screening is you have primary and secondary prevention of cancers, and the idea of screening for cancer is to have a primary prevention. In other words, you can prevent getting this particular cancer if you go through screening. And some cancers, we just have no screening tests for them. For example, ovarian cancer, they just cannot nail down a proper screening test. The pancreatic cancer is also no particular specific screening test. So I'm going to talk about the common ones that you should be doing. And I'm not going to do breast cancer screening. I'm going to leave that to Dr. Sinclair, who will be covering all of breast cancer. So the first thing I want to talk about is tests for colon cancer screening. So colon cancer is a preventative cancer. And so when someone is diagnosed with colon cancer, it tells me that they're not doing their colonoscopy. And the average person in the community, and when I say average, there are people who are at increased risk for colon cancer based on genetic mutations that they have inherited from their families. And they're in a group all to themselves, and that's about 10% of the population. The average person, however, can have proper colon cancer screening that would prevent them from developing colon cancer. Now, why is it easy to screen for colon cancer? Because there's a timeline. It starts out as a polyp, and from a polyp to a cancer is 10 years. So it means that you have 10 years to find this cancer. Now, the average person should start their screening at around age 50, and recently it was changed to age 40. And there are multiple screening tests. 45. So there are multiple screening tests that are available for that. But the number one, the gold standard is a colonoscopy. But if you do not want to do a colonoscopy, there are other tests that can be done, and if positive, you still get back to doing a colonoscopy. So the final pathway is a colonoscopy. So there's stool-based tests, like the fecal immunochemical test. There's a guaic-based fecal test, occult blood testing, and there are multi-target stool DNA testing, and your doctor can decide which one. Now, if you do have a family history of colon cancer, and you're known to have a history of polyps, then none of these stool tests should not be done. You need to go and get the colonoscopy. If you really don't want to do a colonoscopy, then there is a special test called a colon capsule endoscopy, where you're given a capsule to swallow after doing the colonic prep. So you still have to do the prep. And then you swallow the capsule, and after about 24 hours or so, you're put before a camera, and the track to see where, as the camera passes through the colon and the gut, if they pick up that polyp, you move right over to the colonoscopy suite. So if you notice, the final pathway is the colonoscopy. So many men, I find, just avoid colonoscopies, and sometimes they show up at age 70 with a colon cancer, and by then a woman would have done at least, let's say, 20 mammograms, because she starts at age 50 on an average. And so at 70, you're coming for the first time with colon cancer, never had a colonoscopy. That woman would have already done 20 mammograms. So I'm reaching out to my brothers in church, please go for your colonoscopies. And women, while you're going for your mammograms, please go for your colonoscopy as well. What about prostate cancer screening? So the average person would screen for prostate cancer at about age 50. However, when you screen for prostate cancer, it's dependent on the age of the patient, as well as his life expectancy and physical fitness. If the patient is 80 years old and has a lot of comorbidities, then you should not be screening for prostate cancer. You may start screening earlier if this person has a genetic predisposition for prostate cancer or a family history. For example, the BRCA1 gene or BRCA2. And if there's also a strong family history of prostate cancer, then you'll want to start screening at an earlier age, earlier than 50. But the average risk male will initiate screening discussion at about age 50. Now, you remember you used to go to the doctor and you have to do a digital rectal examination? And maybe that's why most men didn't want to go to the doctor to get a prostate cancer screening. But now you do not have to do a digital rectal exam. So, so therefore, you should not, if you go to the doctor and they said, okay, let me do a digital rectal exam, remember, you don't need one. All that you need to do is to do a PSA. A PSA testing, and there are various guidelines as to when to consider it at risk, and the doctor will go through that with you. It's all based on your age and if you're on finasteride or not. There's a way of calculating the at-risk number. The other thing I want to talk about is screening for lung cancer. So lung cancer screening was approved by the FDA about 5 or 6 years ago, or maybe 10 years ago. Time has really flown. And essentially, it went through a very rigorous testing. And what was found was that if you do a low-dose, high-resolution CAT scan once a year in patients who are at risk, there's a 25% risk of reduction in death by doing this. And so that was what made it approved. But the insurance company put some really stringent rules as to who get this low-dose, high-resolution CAT scan. So the patients who are at risk, age 50 to 80 years old, who are at risk, and they should have at least a 20-pack year history of smoking. The way you calculate it is the number of cigarettes per day times the number of years you're smoking. So you could have smoked for just 5 years, but if you are smoking 40 cigarettes a day, that's 5 times 40. So, and that gives you a pack year. So if you have at least a 20-pack year history of smoking and are either current smokers or former smokers, having quit within 15 years, then you should be doing a yearly high-resolution, low-dose CT once a year. And you have to fit that criteria, as your insurance will not pay for it. And then you will stop the screening if you have passed 15 years since you quit smoking and there's been no evidence of lung cancer. And that has been substantiated by 2 large randomized clinical trials. Now, as I mentioned to you earlier, ovarian cancer does not have any specific screening test, which is sad. Yeah. I treated ovarian cancer for at least 10 years, and that was the bulk of my practice. And basically, patients will start out with just having non-specific symptoms. Bloatedness, constipation, nausea. How many of us don't have bloatedness, constipation, and nausea? Until they notice that their abdominal girth is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time they come to you with an increase in abdominal girth, it's late. They're stage 4. So ovarian cancer tend to present late. Stage 3 and 4, by that time they have ascites, large amount of fluid to be drained, large masses in the abdomen, and usually death is very horrible with bowel obstruction. It's usually very sad. And, but there is no screening test that has been found to be good enough for it. However, there are patients who we do subject to certain testing because of a family history or having certain mutations, like the BRCA mutation. And there are various genes, which I don't think it's important to go through now. But those patients who are considered high risk of having ovarian cancer because of a family history, first or second degree relative, or who have the BRCA1 gene, or who has breast cancer that has the BRCA1 or 2 gene, they're at an increased risk of ovarian cancer, and therefore these patients, we allow them to go through certain testing. For example, we may do transvaginal ultrasounds annually, and even other imaging annually, but it still doesn't really, it's not a perfect testing. And I'll just say right now, don't do the CA-125. The CA-125 can go up even if you have a pneumonia. And if your doctor is doing CA-125 and it's elevated, then you have to go through the whole gamut of testing. So if everybody here is doing a CA-125, can you imagine the cost? Because the chance that it's positive is very low, that it's true positive. So there's no real, but if you have a family history, then you should be going in for a pelvic ultrasound or transvaginal ultrasounds just to see what's going on. There's certain, did I mention that for colon cancer, there are certain families, I did say 10%, that has mutations, that's hereditary. And so the way the screening goes for that group of patients is that you would start screening 10 years prior to the time that the person was diagnosed. So if the person was diagnosed at age 40, your screening would start at age 30. And there's the ones with the Lynch syndrome and FAP, they would start screening at as early as age 25, and then do a colonoscopy every 3 years. And if they are found to have polyps, then they may have to do a total colectomy. You know, that's how severe that is, because what we found is that these patients with hereditary colon cancer, they do not go through the 10-year polyp to colon cancer sequence. It's almost like they start out just having colon cancer. So they're in a group all to themselves. There's no particular screening for gastric cancer. Cervical cancer screening, again, cervical cancer is a sexually transmitted disease. It's due to the HPV virus, human papilloma virus, serotype 16 and I think 17. And the screening test for cervical cancer is a pap smear. So therefore, why are people showing up with cervical cancer when they're pap smears? You know, so the point I'm making is if you follow your screening guidelines, see your doctor regularly, be obedient to the screening guidelines, you can prevent certain cancers. So, the guidelines. For patients less than 21 years, we do not screen for cervical cancer regardless of the age of initial sexual activity. For patients ages 21 to 29, we initiate cervical cancer screening at the age of 21 with cervical cytology every 3 years. So that is pap smear. And the approach is consistent with the 2018 United States Preventative Service Task Force guidelines. Another acceptable approach is to initiate screening at age 25 with primary HPV testing every 5 years, consistent with the 2020 American Cancer Society guidelines. For patients ages 30 to 65, we continue cervical cancer screening if any of the following strategies. Primary HPV testing every 5 years or co-testing, pap smear, HPV testing every 5 years, and pap test alone every 3 years. So in other words, they're doing both pap tests and HPV testing when they're doing the cervical cancer screening. For patients over 65 years, the decision to discontinue screening depends on whether the patient has had adequate prior screening, life expectancy, and preferences in a shared decision-making with their doctor. For patients who are high risk, for example, patients with HIV are considered high risk for cervical cancer, or patients who are on immunosuppressive therapy or is immunocompromised. If they're considered high risk for developing cervical cancer and needs to change the screening pattern, then it will be a patient-to-patient decision of how often it's screened or how often screening takes place. If you do have an abnormal result, then of course the screening become more frequent, and also it may involve doing a colposcopy. Of course, your gynecologist will take it from there. I think that's where I'm going to stop. And if you have any other question regarding cancer screening when we're sitting here, I'm more than happy to answer it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gale, for that awesome presentation. Our next presenter will be presenting a talk on breast cancer. The next presenter is Dr. Carleen Sinclair. Dr. Carleen Sinclair was born in Kingston, Jamaica. She was blessed to attend 3 Adventist colleges and universities. West Indies College, now known as Northern Caribbean University, Andrews University, and Loma Linda University School of Medicine. She's board certified general surgeon. She practiced general surgery, included the treatment of breast cancer for 3 decades. She now worked in wound care. She and her daughter, Joanne, are members of the Mount Olive SDA Church. Welcome, Dr. Carleen Sinclair.
Good afternoon, Windermere. Hopefully I do this thing right. So my topic is breast cancer facts versus fiction. I can't tell you. It's like, I know why God hates lies, because the foolishness and the stories, I hear them from people, white people, black people, Spanish people. I hear them from people born and raised in Jamaica. I hear them from people who are barely educated and those who are well educated. So cancer is not, nobody never put no duppy on you, right? Cancer, as everything we do, everything that's happened to us started in Genesis 3, you shall not surely die. It's two things, genetics and environment. Talk to your husband, Dr. Gill. Anyway, genetics and everybody, you know, all the topics are different. We talk about heart disease, we talk about obesity, we talk about menopause. Everything has to do with those two things, genetics and environment. And that's what causes cancer, okay? Many of the prevention is exactly the same. I have another talk when I talk about cancer prevention, and I put it side by side with diabetes, because almost everything we tell the cancer patients in terms of lifestyle is the same thing we tell. However, when somebody gets diagnosed with breast cancer or any cancer, they come to church and they're crying and they want prayers and they want anointing. When people get diagnosed with high blood pressure and diabetes, nobody comes. Nobody comes to church, and nobody comes to you with any foolishness about this and that. They just go on and take the medicine. But when they come to cancer, they have everything. They all of a sudden, they know all better than all of us combined, and Dr. Bryce and anybody else in here is a professional. So, fact or fiction? Am I going the right direction? Okay. Facts. I don't know how well you can see it. It's not projecting as well as hope. But anyway, it's the second leading cause of cancer in women in United States and European-esque countries. When it comes to the Caribbean, it's actually the first leading cause. Why? Because the number one cause of cancer is cancer that is skin cancer in women, okay? And we don't, you know, we have the protective melanin, so we don't have that. So it's still a pretty high. About 1 in 8 women will get cancer in their lifetime, breast cancer in their lifetime. Breast cancer can and do occur in men. The most famous person that I talk about is Richard Roundtree. He actually died recently from pancreatic cancer. So he had breast cancer, he got treated, he took care of himself, went on to live many, many years, and of course pancreatic cancer took him out, I think it was last year, or at a late, it was last year, right? So he's one of the most famous men. I always mention him because I've had people, older men especially, tell me, it's impossible. What do you mean men have breast cancer? Yes, men can get breast cancer. And I've taken care of a few of them myself. Breast cancer can and do occur in men. It is, I have to read from here because that, I can't read it from there. It is treatable with excellent results. Actually, that part I should just know, because it is. Almost everybody, with few exceptions, patient that I have had, and I've been a surgeon now for over 30 years. I've been a doctor for almost 40 years, but I've been a surgeon, a board-certified surgeon, for over 30 years. And almost everybody who I have had who have died, just me, and I'm not talking about the Moffats and so on, are either people with unusual types of breast cancer, but most often it's somebody who holding on to their breast cancer, who given all kind of treatment. And these are not poor people. These are often people well insured, but they just allow fear to take over their life. And you know, they're gone. Okay, so here's the fact. 5-year survival overall is 90% because of screening. Because of screening. 10-year survival, 84%. 15-year survival, 80%. Most people are gonna live. out their life. Now, saying that, I do have a few 20-something years old, and I have a bunch of 30-something years old, and a little bit more 40 years old than I'd like. But there's still a minority of patients. The majority of patients are older. And look at that. For stage 1 and 2, 99% of those people are not going to die from breast cancer. They're going to go on to live their life to die from something else. 2 categories of risk. Some things we can change, some things we can't change. Okay? These are the unchangeable risks. Women are more likely to get breast cancer than men. Breast cancer, and most cancers, is a disease of the aged. Most solid tumor cancers, except for a couple of the blastomas that we see in children. In general, most cancers is an aging disease. It happens when you're older. Prostate cancer, colon cancer, and all of that. Can't do anything about that. Family history, you can't do anything about that. You know, you can't. It is what it is. Gene positivity. I have a whole talk on screening because now we have the blessing of genetic screening for 5 cancers: breast, colon, prostate, ovarian. I missed one? Pancreatic. Genetic testing. It's not just the BRCA anymore. And even when we do the test, we do it like an 82-panel thing. And I spoke to a geneticist who would work with one of the companies, and they actually will hold on to your genes. Like if they notice a gene is popping up, but they're really not sure because they have a thing called statistically significant, meaning that they notice it's there, but when they run the math, they can't say it's contributing to it. They hold on to it because they're continually testing. And over time, if they know that you have it, once they have your gene, unlike Henrietta Lacks, they actually will contact you and let you know what's going on. For those of you who don't know Henrietta Lacks, this is a black lady, went to the hospital, Johns Hopkins. They've been using her genes for decades, and her family was in poverty and never asked her no question about it. Anyway, there are a couple other things. Ages cause an increased risk, gene positive, and also mammograms. We used to think that the way the mammogram looks was just a natural thing, because most younger women had dense breasts, and their mammograms weren't very easily read. As you get older, you have more fatty replaced breasts. It doesn't mean you're obese, your breasts just naturally have more fatty. That's why everything goes south. Because instead of fibers, you have fat, and you can't hold up whether you're A or G. But we found out now that screening is much more, that we have actually categorized the mammograms, and I'm sorry I don't actually have pictures in here. And people with a certain type of mammogram, meaning they're getting older, but they still have the TV without cable look. You know, when the cable goes in, that's what their mammogram look like. Those women are actually, we used to just think it's because we couldn't see as well, because of just the way it is. But it's actually been shown, because now we have these large registries, that those women actually are at high risk. There's nothing they can do about it, but at least when we know about it, we know that this woman, even though she have a normal mammogram, we're still gonna do an ultrasound. We may even send her for an MRI, because we can better see inside the breast, because that's all the test is. And so that's it. Now, these are the ones. You notice, look at the screen. 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody said the same thing. Obesity and high-fat diet. Exercise, maintain health. Alcohol and tobacco. Everybody said the same thing. Blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, menopause, other cancers. In fact, there was a study that came out some years ago that showed that men with prostate cancer, early form, low grade, actually, by losing weight and changing to a vegan diet, they didn't need any surgery or any other treatment. But it's specific. So when you get diagnosed, don't believe that because that study came out, it applies to you. It's very specific. The other things, menopause or hormone therapy, I'm going to take a second with this. You know, what did Dr. Robinson say? It is a what? Natural thing, right? Menopause. Okay, they got the bright idea. We're talking about heart disease. women had a lower history of heart disease. So sometime, I think 70s, whatever, they got a great idea that, okay, after menopause, women and men, the heart disease rate was the same. Oh, so we're going to prevent it now. We're going to give women hormones. That was a disaster. Not only did they have more heart disease, but then they had other things like breast cancer and uterine cancer. Premarin. You know what Premarin is? Anybody knows? No. Pregnant mare urine. A mare is a female horse. Premarin. Pregnant mare urine. Enough said. Okay. Radiation treatment. So young people who have had Hodgkin's disease or other diseases where they've had to have they have a high risk of breast cancer. It's usually very early treated. They're among the 99%. Breastfeeding actually does decrease your risk of breast cancer. Okay, the fake news. Deodorants do not cause breast cancer. Okay? Don't go around with a natural deodorant. Some people can wear natural deodorant. Not everybody can wear natural deodorant. Mammograms do not cause breast cancer. Very low dose. In fact, with the digital age, there's almost no radiation at all. Large breasts, no. No, that's just a genetic thing. Vegetarians cannot get breast cancer. Yes, you can. Your risk is decreased. The biggest cancer where you have a decreased risk is colon cancer. It's almost non-existent among vegetarians. Colon cancer, almost non-existent. I say almost because that's what I say, genetic plus environment. And sometimes you cannot, we're born in sin, shaping it, so sometimes you cannot overcome it. But vegetarians can get breast cancer. And so the fact that you have a low risk, the fact that you're healthy, all of that is wonderful. And those things help prevent, but it's not a linear, okay? It's not a linear. It's just factors that we know prevent. So you still have to get tested, you still have to get screened. Okay. Early detection. That's the reason why we see that 99% of people with stage 1 and 2 breast cancer, 0 to 2, I should say, 99%, that means that almost everybody's gonna live, okay? Early detection. Stage 0, you see the statistics there? Look at the drop-off between 3 and 4. Even up to stage 3, most people are still gonna, with treatment. Not with leaf and so on, with treatment. The changing of the lifestyle is good because it builds up your body and allows you to tolerate the treatment that you need, but it's with treatment. As I said to people all the time, if you're in a car accident and you break your leg, you're not gonna take soursop leaf. You're gonna go to the hospital and let the doctor fix it, because soursop leaf is good for some things, but it cannot fix a bleeding thing. Breast cancer is like you're bleeding, only you don't see it, okay? So, early treatment, early outcome. The main screening method that we have is mammograms. It is the most efficient. You know, Dr. Grail talked about, it is the most efficient, especially with the digital mammograms. And now we have this thing where, you know how they give you injection if you're getting a CAT scan? They have it. It actually is more accurate than the MRI. The war between that is that everybody got these digital systems, and there are very few places where you can get it done. But it is actually more accurate than the MRI in terms of screening. But screening. And don't tell, oh, it hurts. We're women. We wear shoes that don't fit us. We wear clothes that don't fit us. We wear heels, okay? We put on all the shapewear. Don't tell me foolishness that you can't go once a year and get yourself tested. Don't, you know, you need to get screened. Oh, let me get an ultrasound. Ultrasound is important, but ultrasound is not a screening test. Once we see something, you have to get an ultrasound. The other day I went to get my mammogram. I looked at it. Of course, me and Rose is like, it's not there. And she pulled up my own mammograms and we looked. Of course, before I even reached my job, Dr. Saunders called. She said, you know, Dr. Sinclair, I said, no. So we got we had to get the ultrasound, plus we had to get the diagnostic. Squeeze the living daylight out of your butt. You do what you do. Turns out to be nothing. Because even the best of tests, sometimes they have to squeeze a little because tissue will flow all over tissue. We kind of suspected that in a Rosie's attack. We looked at it and it said, see that blood vessel there? We think that's what it was. We were right. But I didn't take no chance. And I look at mammograms. I can look at mammograms. I have been looking at mammograms for over 30 years. I've been looking at mammograms. Still, I'm not taking no chance. I'm getting my diagnostic, okay? Screening, early detection, it makes a difference, okay? Facts, treatment. You get your mammogram, you get your ultrasound, your biopsy. Some people need MRI, PET scans, especially if they are positive for the genes. Surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, hormone therapy. Let me tell you something. Now, the latest study we did shows that women over a certain age, if they are estrogen and progesterone positive, HER2 negative, I know you hear those commercials, but just bear with me. They do not need radiation therapy over 75. The results are excellent. Just lumpectomy. We just take it out and we just monitor you. They're even the next set of studies now they're doing to see even younger women. It's a very specific group, but it's actually a fairly large group of women. So from the time I started in medical school, when I saw this patient named Teresa Franks, she was 31 years old and she was dying of breast cancer. That's when I became interested in breast cancer. Like me, her hair was braided. She was the same age as my older sister at the time. And that's what was my interest, because she was dying at 31. We don't start screening till 40. She was dying at 31. And now we know that we don't even have to do some of the stuff we have to do. The problem I often encounter is somebody come to me with a breadfruit that they've been nursing for 2-3 years, and they come to tell me they want lumpectomy. No, that's not how it works, okay? If you get screened and you come in early, we are even looking at cryotherapy now, which means once we do the biopsy percutaneous, we go in, we freeze the tissue around it, and we're looking at it. Not there yet, but we're looking at it. Early detection. Herbal medicine cannot cure cancer. The irony that I find, dietary changes, our alternate medicine, herbs and stuff, you know what the irony? Like I said, everybody's talking about the same thing, what we eat and the lack of exercise. And all these people come to me with the diabetes, high blood pressure, and obesity, and then they're going to tell me that they're going to take herb and they're going to change their diet and they're going to cure breast cancer. If they were changing their diet, they wouldn't have to deal with doctors or him in the cath lab, her. They wouldn't have to do it. Dr. Bryce, isn't it true? If they had changed their lifestyle when they were diagnosed with high blood pressure and diabetes, if they had changed their diet, if they had even taken some good herbs, because there's some good herbs, if they were exercising, now they have cancer. And they come tell me that they're going to do that. And that's the irony. Because if they had changed their lifestyle with the high blood pressure and so on, they would have been off the medicine, lortabine, amlodipine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they don't. Now they have cancer that's going to kill them, and they tell me this is what they're going to do. It doesn't work. It's okay to change your diet. It's okay to exercise, because you recover from surgery. But people who are in healthy condition, when we do surgery from them, they recover like nothing. I remember I had a 77-year-old lady, trim, she walked all the time. She wanted to go to a rehab center after surgery. She had waited. But usually, if you don't get cancer till you're late in your 70s, it's a slower going cancer, as opposed to somebody in their 40s. They wouldn't qualify her, because after surgery, she was up and about. When you're healthy, you tolerate your treatments better. What do you need to know? What they said? Same thing. What you said, doctor? I just met this lady here. We don't have no collaboration. I just met her today. As we say in Jamaica, today. I just meet her. What did they say? Low-fat diet, routine exercise, adequate sleep. Didn't she say that? Yes. Okay. Stress reduction. Thank you. You get your exam. You start your mammogram. Yearly physical, yearly pap smear. Dr. Agale already talked about that. What do you do if you find a lump? Don't worry. How come we worry so much? You know, when that one won the election, oh, Jesus is coming. Really? So if the honest prosecutor had won the election, Jesus wasn't coming? I don't know. I don't understand us. Why are we panicking? What? I've been teaching Sabbath school since I was 14, and I can't understand why Adventists panic so quickly. Because I've been teaching these, I've been reading this, I've been teaching these lessons. I've taught everybody from kindergarten all the way up to adults. I don't understand why we panic and we worry, we think it go magic. We start talking about herbs and going on the internet like that can help you. Get a mammogram, get an ultrasound if you hadn't had one, get your biopsy. If you're uncertain, get a second opinion. Not because you're trying to hear something that's not the truth. If you're really uncomfortable with your doctor, get a second opinion. But don't go to somebody else thinking they're going to tell you something else because you don't want to hear the truth. It is there. If God allowed this to happen to you, He already has a plan. He already has a plan. Okay? You're denying it and so on. All you're doing is not, you're not showing that you actually believe. Because if you believe that God has a plan, that anything He allows in life, you will be like Job. Right? Though He slay me, but He's not slaying you. He's testing you to see how you're going to react. Okay? Websites, if you must go on the internet, these are websites. First one, cancer.gov, all different cancers. Breastcancer.org, run by the American Society of Breast Surgeons, whom I'm a member. Komen.org, Susan Komen died from breast cancer years ago. She has her association. Sisters Network, these are for people who actually have breast cancer. Sisters Network, it's important. You know why? Because while you may have a supportive husband, wife, family, whoever, these women have had breast cancer. These women are going to tell you things about stuff that you're not going to ask me about. So it's an excellent organization. 90% are going to survive. It's not a death sentence unless you decide to hold on to it. And trust me, I've had one very good friend die from breast cancer. I remember where I was sitting in my office. I remember the day she called me. And before she even finished her sentence, I said, you have had it for longer than that. Because, you know, you hear the Nancy story all the time. So the minute she started to talk to me, I said, you have had it. And she said, but Colleen, such and such and such. We grew up together, went to the same high school in Jamaica. I've known her my whole life. She's gone now. It's been a few years now, right? Yeah. And I can't even describe the number of Adventist young women I know who died and left their children because they wouldn't accept the proper treatment. And these people, they take the blood pressure medicine, they take this medicine, they take diabetes medicine. When breast cancer, doctor don't know nothing. 90% of people are going to survive. And not just survive, live. Live. You're not surviving in a hole somewhere, you're going to live. God is in control. It's either we believe it or we don't believe it. He's in control. So pray, claim the promises, and do the right thing. Trust. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean onto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him. He'll direct your path. No, for I know the plans I have for you. This is God speaking. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope. Peace. You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. Amen. Trust in the Lord. Trust in Yah, Jehovah. That's verse 4. I can't remember it verbatim. And I'm done.
Would like to thank Dr. Sinclair for the presentation on breast cancer. And if we have people here without insurance, they have places where they can have free mammogram at Libby Legacy and other places in Orlando. If you need more information, you can contact the health department or the health department at Windermere, and we give you more information. And the next speaker is going to be Dr. Erna Alteno. She's going to talk about movement. Dr. Erna Alteno Cyprien. She is a Haitian-born chiropractor. She has her own practice for about 15 years, and she's married to Melchior for about 23 years with 3 wonderful children, Gabby, McKenna, and Gio. So the next voice is going to be Dr. Cyprien.
All right, good evening. Just move. Next one. So, what is movement? I think I get it. How do I go forward? That's me. So, what is movement? Anything can be movement. Walking, jogging, biking, swimming, gardening, playing any sports, they all can be movement. So, what do we do movement? We do movement for flexibility, endurance, for us to be more mobile, for us to be more powerful. We do movement for us to be stronger, for us to have better muscle, for bone density, for pain management, and to prevent fall, especially for the elderly. Those are the reasons that we do movement. You know, movement is essential part of our daily lives. We cannot live without us moving. So we got to do movement. So we know there are like so many benefits of doing movement. Let me go back. Okay. The physical benefits of doing movement. You know, we have stronger bones, we have better muscle, we have better flexibilities. When it comes to cellular function, it's better for us when we do movement. For mental benefits, when we move, when we do physical activities, there are some good secretion of some good hormones or some feel-good hormones that secrete. So those are the reasons we do movement. And also when we do movement, it may lower the disease, chronic disease. I know we all talk about cancer or diabetes. Movement, physical activities, lower those chronic diseases. Even with certain pain, I am a chiropractor, so I've seen people with back pain all the time. So movement is a good medicine for back pain, certain back pains, shoulders or neck or knee pain. There are many types of movement that we can do. Like I said already, I didn't want to title it exercises. I didn't want to have any excuses. I have to pay for gym membership and stuff like that. We can do it ourselves. As long as we have ourselves, we can do it. We can do push-up, we can do pull-ups, we can do squatting, we can do all those stuff. As long as we have ourselves, we can move, we can do movements. Of course, dancing is a good type of movement. Like I already said, and there is no excuses for us not to do any movement or physical activities. I've been to that church. What's it? There's one thing I want to say, like, when we getting older, we have a tendency to fall, but we see the more we move, the less fall that we can prevent. Because one of the reasons, it could be any of us, but I'm gonna say elderly, 65 and older, fall. It's because of sarcopenia. We're losing our muscle mass. One of the reasons for us to prevent that, it's movement. So if we do exercises, if we do physical activities, we're gonna have our muscle mass, so that it will be less likely for us to fall. And there was one study, probably this is the last, when you fall, you have the mortality rate you have has increased. So we don't want people to fall. For us to prevent that, we should move. Next one. There is one subject, I know we talk about it. What is it? How would you say that? Like people in our 40s, 50s and above, that we're dealing with menopause or perimenopause. One of the things we can do to deal with all those crazy symptoms that we have is to move. I know some of us were complaining about those belly fat that we have. Lifting some weight training, movement, those could be how we cope with all those stuff. And not only movement, also eating a good diet. I know somebody's gonna talk about that. Next. Okay, where's the next slide? This is it. When we go out to, when we're gonna do physical activities of movement, make it fun. Listen to a good podcast, if you guys listen to a good sermon, listen to some good songs. Make it fun. Don't make it something that's, oh my God, I gotta do that. Make it something that's fun, you enjoy. This is what I want you guys to do. There is nothing better going for a walk and you're listening to a good podcast. You know what? You say, I'm going for 30 minutes. After 1 hour, like, oh my God, it's 60 minutes. You don't even realize that. Just move, make it fun, and you guys will be good. Like they said, use it or lose it. All of us heard that saying, use it or lose it. If we don't use, and if we don't use our muscles, we're gonna lose it. The question I have for everybody in here, how do you see yourself 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10, 50, 60, 70 years from now? How do you see yourself? When you guys, how do you see yourself? When you guys have those grandkids, will you be able to play with them? When you guys travel, now people in the 40s, 50s sometimes don't have that much money, but those in the 60s, they have the money. When you guys have to, when you guys want to go to those exotic places, can we carry our own bags? Can we lift them? Can we go up and down the stairs? Can we do all those stuff? How do you see yourself? If something fall on the floor, can we just pick it up? How do we see ourselves? I just want you guys to picture whatever we're doing now. Picture yourself like 5, 10, 20 years, 50 years from now. Don't do it for you now. Do it for the future you. So all I can say, just move, be active, stay in motion. Now, shall we move?
Shall we move? Let's move. Let's move. Let's move. Let's move. Thank you, Dr. Cyprien. So we can say if we eat the right food, we exercise, and we sleep, we're going to stay healthy for a longer time. So what we're going to do, we're going to move, we're going to eat balanced meals, and we're going to sleep well. And the next speaker is going to be on plant-based diet. And the speaker is going to be O'Neill Brown. He is a personal trainer, founder and CEO of OBFit. He has used his gifts and talent for more than 20 years to build and develop strong bodies and encourage and inspire positive lifestyle changes for his clients and others in the health and fitness industry. Coach O'Neill's greatest desire is to see everyone live in peace and happiness from within. And he has two of his many mantras. Your health is your wealth, and excuse don't get results. He specializes in sport performance, strength training, physique toning, and healthy lifestyle, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Now, pay attention to the Coach Brown.
Happy Sabbath and good afternoon, everyone. No, y'all gotta be a lot louder. I'm very energetic and I like energy. Energy is something that is given to all of us. So let's use our energy. Good afternoon, everyone. That's what I'm talking about. And thank you. And what our doctor was saying, we're gonna move a little right now. I want everyone to stand up for a few. We're not gonna take long. I'm not gonna give you no burpees, no push-ups. But you know, we've been in church all day, right? So we're just gonna start marching in place, moving around. All right, here you go. Then we're gonna push our hands up in the meantime. Up, nice. Then we're gonna go out with it. Good. Here we go. Then we're gonna punch right, punch left, keep moving. There we go. Nice. Here we go. Then we're gonna pick our knees up a little bit higher. Pick it up. There we go. Good. There you go. And good. So please be seated. All right. So it's very important to move your bodies, ladies and gentlemen. Exercise is something that we need to do on a daily basis. And not to mention, nutrition is also important that we do on a daily basis. So first, I'm not a doctor like the rest, okay, but I'm grateful to be amongst them. And I'm not a chef, but I'm grateful that my late mother, Miss Iceland Brown, taught my brothers and I and sisters how to cook. And I remember she said this when I was young. She said, I may not give you everything in life, but I'm going to give you something that is very, very important. I'm going to teach you how to cook that no woman is supposed to take care of. You're supposed to take care of yourself. So, because of that, I took that. And I'm not old, I'm still young, but knowing my brother, he's a little bit older than me. But if you raised in a Jamaican home, all right, we don't measure our food by what? We don't go off the measuring cup. A pinch of this, a dash of that, such and such. There was no measuring cups like say, hey, this is how you measure. Like now we got the internet that can show you a lot of ways how you could make things. But I'm grateful for those things that she taught me. And literally, it's very basic stuff. And that's what I've been using, since I realized that, you know what? Okay, it's good to go out to eat, every now and then. You want to treat yourself. But when I was growing up as a kid, I never had a birthday party. And I never got upset. Because guess what? There was always food on the table. My mother made sure that every evening before, when we came home from, whether my brothers, they came home from work, whether I came home from school. Sisters, yeah, sisters. Sisters, all right. There was always food on the table. And if you know my sister, she could cook too, so she's a great cook and everything. So we were taught from the Bible how to live the right way and things and what to do. Now, the information that is we have now, we didn't have all the information then. So technology plays a great role now. Yes, we can go on the internet and find information on how to do anything, okay? Anything off when it comes to your health. Some of the information that are there is true, some aren't, you know? But the greatest information we have is in the what? The Bible. And if we go back to the foundation from the Word of God, and if we apply the Word of God on a daily basis, let me tell you this, you can live an abundant life. It gives to us, when you go back to Genesis 1 verse 29, it talks about what? Anything that has seeds, it shall be for what? So if we go back to a plant-based, I don't say diet, I call it a lifestyle. If we go to a plant-based lifestyle, and lifestyle is not something that you do overnight. It's something that you do on a daily basis. It's something that you continue to practice until the day you what? Die. So if we go back to the simplest plant-based lifestyle, I'm not going to tell you just give up meat immediately. No, all of those things takes time, okay? But gradually keep working on eating better. Eating better, putting the right foods, knowing the foods that you're eating, okay? Exercise, move your bodies. Go to sleep. Go to bed. Turn that cell phone off. If some of us who was raised up in Jamaica, y'all know we used to have what? One TV station, right? And at a certain time of the night, what? It shut off. I need for you to go back to that way. Turn off your cell phone. You see that blue light on that cell phone? It is very deadly. Yes, you need to turn off the television. Go to bed early. There's nothing wrong if you go to bed at 9 o'clock. I understand some of us have families. You know, we have younger kids that are going to school and everything. And I know it's a challenge. And we also need to take them cell phones away from them too. And we just need to teach them the simple basic information, give them the basics on what it takes to live a healthy and happy life. So when it comes to plant-based, all right, diet, okay? Plant-based diet is, you know, we notice people will say plant-based, okay, it's in a plant. No, it's not in a plant. It's from the earth. You and I, we came from what? The earth. So if we eat food from the earth, right, it helps prevent certain form of what? Diseases. And it says an ounce of prevention is what? Better than a pound of cure. My brother always tells me this, my brother Paul, he said, genetics loads the gun, but what? Lifestyle pulls the trigger. Again, genetics load the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. So you have to understand the lifestyle that you live. If you want to work 16 hours a day, think about this. You're going to miss out on sleep. Now, there are some people, yes, they could do that, but is that the right way? No, if you want to drink alcohol, if you want to just eat a fatty diet, there are some people who continue to live longer than some who don't. But is that the right way? No, we just need to balance everything out. We need to make sure that the foods that we are eating is very nutritious. Okay? We got to remember, take time out for ourselves. At least 30 minutes a day to what? Move your body. Not just walking only, but also as the older you get, adults, as the older you get, please, I highly recommend that you do some form of strength training exercise, lifting weights. It's important because the older you get, right, guess what? Your bones get what? Weak. Okay, you remember this commercial that they say milk does the body good? That is a lie. That is a lie, because you still have people walking around with what? Osteoporosis. So we got to understand, if you want stronger bones, good nutrition along with exercise. Good nutrition along with exercise. Remember, each day you're what? You're picking up your legs, right? So that means go to the gym, Planet Fitness. If you need a personal trainer, I highly recommend, if you can afford it, hire a personal trainer so they can teach you the form and say, you know, let me do 6 months with him or her. And now, I'm not saying you go be a personal trainer for someone else, but you become your own personal trainer. So I highly recommend that you do some form of strength training. You don't have to go try to lift 200 pounds or bench squat 300 pounds. Start out with simple, small, lightweight, and work your way up. You'll be amazed. And what that does for you, it helps you to what? To sleep better. It helps your body to have better range of motion. All right? Next thing, nutrition. Think about this. When we eat food that is processed, what do you think going to happen to the body? It slow it down. Okay? What do you think is going to happen to the brain? Sluggish. And what starts to happen? Now you start having what? Mood. You know, you'll see people wake up in the morning sometimes, you know, you on the job and everything. Oh, I didn't have my cup of coffee this morning, so I can't really talk to you. They got to gravitate to what? Caffeine. And what caffeine does to the body, it dehydrates the body. Next thing that I noticed, they have these energy drink. Your natural energy drink is your fruits that you go buy from the grocery store. You could juice your grapefruit. You could juice your apples. You could juice your watermelon. You could juice your grapes. I promise you this, if you wake up in the morning and you drink, or not even drink, if you eat your seeded watermelon, not your seedless, your seeded grapes. Think about this. When you notice when you go inside the store now, everything is what? It's a reason why. You got to understand what's going on. Genetically modified. So what is happening now? And then the things that they say that is organics is also what? Seedless. And it's very expensive, because the grapes that I purchased, right, a bag of grapes that it had seeds in it, I paid $3.99 a pound. The seedless one is $6.99. It doesn't. So when we start eating a plant-based diet, when we start eating plant-based food, okay, ladies and gentlemen, and plant-based food is just not about fruits and vegetables. It's also your nuts, your grains, and your herbs, and all of that. Think about it. Now, I know probably what you're saying, what is plant-based? Think about your quinoa, your grains, okay? Think about your, Dr. Bryce said white rice, right? It's a killer. The real rice is what? Wild rice. Wild rice. Quinoa. Because those are loaded what? With iron, vitamins, minerals, calcium. When you cook your wild rice, it is loaded with also what? Protein. Our body needs protein. And if we're not eating the proper foods, what's just going to happen? Now we're going to be what? Protein deficiency, iron deficiency. And I've seen that in many, many of my clients. You know, I ask them, what do you eat for protein? Well, I'm taking this protein shake. And there are thousands of different ingredients in it. I can't even read it. So I tell them, if I can't read it, if you cannot read it, then you don't need to take it. Yes. So we have to understand now when we go to the grocery store, the front of the box or the front of the package that you purchase, the front is for what? Entertainment purposes. So you got to understand, we don't use our money anymore to buy things. You know what we buy things with? With our eyes. So the back is what? For what? Educational purpose. But no one is going to what? Turn around and read it. So we have to understand the importance of knowing these things. And more, when we start educating ourselves, more and more we'll understand why God loves us and why he gave us these things from the beginning of time, from Genesis. And there's not, like I can say this to you, ladies and gentlemen, and please understand this, that when it comes to a plant-based lifestyle, you will be more sharper mentally, physically, and spiritually.
What a beautiful day we have with a lot of information. We would like to thank all the speakers for the wonderful presentation. And now we have only 20 minutes for questions.
Yes, Doctor, I can't remember which one of you said that.
Dr. Bryce. Okay, Dr. Bryce to the podium.
Yeah. I can't remember, one of you ladies said men have breast cancer, right? Yes. And my question is, how come women are more likely to have breast cancer? You find more women than men. Can you tell us a little about that, please?
Okay. When you look at the function of the breast, the thing that makes us mammals, going back to animal kingdom, the thing that makes us mammals is that we have breasts. Meaning all mammals, not just humans, but all mammals have breasts, whether you're male or female. The breast in the men is there, but it's not really functional. In women, it is functional. We have the lobules that make milk, and we have the ducts that allow it to come out. The men still have the ducts. The men still have the lobules. They're just not as functional. And so therefore, we're the ones with the functional organ, and that's why we have it much more common. But the ducts are still there. So men can, in fact, one of my male patients had both papillary breast cancer in one breast and invasive ductal in the other breast. He had bilateral breast cancer. So it's still there. It's just not as common. Also, we have the hormones, the estrogen and progesterone, and our cycle that we go through every month. All of those things contribute to the fact that we have more breast cancer.
I have a question. I've had a friend, maybe more than one, who never smoked, never been around certain things, but still had lung cancer.
So lung cancer, there are different types of lung cancer. There's a squamous carcinoma, there's adenocarcinoma, and what we find is, and there's small cell lung cancer. So non-small cell can be divided into, it's an umbrella for the squamous and the adeno. And then there's small cell lung cancer. The small cell lung cancer and squamous cell carcinoma of the lung tend to be associated with almost 100% tobacco smoke. But adenocarcinoma of the lung, you can see that without tobacco smoke. And sometimes it has genetic relationships, mutations, and I forget the certain ethnic group can also be associated with that type of lung cancer. So I've had a patient, in fact, She was a nurse and developed adenocarcinoma of the lung with a TP53 mutation. This is a lethal mutation that doesn't respond to any treatment. And she lived like exactly 6 months when she passed. And for the entire 6 months, her cry every visit was, "I didn't even smoke." And she could not get over that. She said, "I did not even smoke." But you find that tobacco association is not always the case, especially with that particular.
I think that's what she had, because she died quickly.
Yeah.
May I add something to that? A friend of mine, one of my classmates from medical school actually was treated for breast cancer. For lung cancer. And she's an orthopedic surgeon. And a study just came out recently that shows that women in orthopedic and other surgery programs where they do a lot of x-rays have a higher incidence of lung cancer. The study just came out. I don't know the histology, but I do know she did. I mean, and she's born, raised Adventist. She's not even pescatarian her whole life. She's, vegetarian her whole life, not overweight, nothing, no risk factors whatsoever. But they did find that women who went to orthopedic program have a higher risk of lung cancer. We believe, of course, even though they have the little things to monitor the radiation, we believe it is radiation exposure, which we know is a risk factor for cancer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you may, but before we answer your question, just to make it fair to everybody in the congregation, we're going to do alternate side to take a question. So if we take one from this side, we'll take one from that side. Just to, just to balance it. So Dr. Burnett, Brother Raymond had his hand up first. So after Brother Raymond, you'll get your turn.
Yes, I have two questions, one for the doctors and one for the I'm not sure it's the chef or the coach. Okay. Okay, let me start with the coach first. For years, Adventists live longer because of their diet. That's a fact. Over the years, the ABC store is not selling good food. The old food supermarket, that's an old food, that's a joke also. So we should be informing our people about their food. I'm not sure if I grow stuff at home because I said the importance of a lot of things with season, no season, the benefits of that. And if we are eating as a belly full or we want to eat for nutrition, we have a choice, but we need to be educated and get information to do that. So we want to answer into that as far
as a whole, we should learn how to plant
right.
our own food. For those who grew up in the Caribbean, like my brothers and sisters and I, and some of us, all of us here on the panel, right? Not all of us? Okay. So we know that the foods that we ate, all of our food we ate coming from the earth, and we know that that is helpful for us. And number two, too, you got to understand that even though the task that we have here in the United States of America, now we paying bills and we got to make sure we paying our bills on time. We got to make sure we got our kids going to school. All of that take place and everything, but that doesn't stop us from practicing a healthier lifestyle. So yes, we need to learn how to plant our food, and we don't need to have no big farm. We could use our backyard.
Amen.
We could use those pots. We could use those planters. Yes, we could use those planters and start growing in those. So you don't need a big space. You see, a lot of times what we gotta stop thinking that everything has to be big. We could start out small and go from there.
Yes, I think we need to promote that more because a lot of times people say, I'm going to be a vegetarian or a vegan, and where you going to get your food from? Because I see time and time again, we are being fed with GMO food, and we say we are vegetarians. And we actually, I'm not sure if we understand that we're still killing ourselves. We try to have a healthy lifestyle, but where do you get your food? Are you understand what type of food you're buying? So we need to understand that more.
I think, Coach, go ahead, Dr. Wright, I'm sorry. I was about to say, I think Coach in his speech just kind of identified to you what is GMO and what wasn't. If it is without seeds when it's supposed to be a seeded plant or fruit, then clearly it's been genetically modified.
I understand. I plant stuff at home. I'm not a farmer, but I'm very curious with food and plants. And a lot of things I plant, before I even understand it, I say I'm going to plant it. And when it comes to perfection and I eat it, I realize that all the other stuff, the fancy old foods and even the ABC store, are a joke and a lie. So we need to tell our people, I know you might not have the time to plant. Listen, I grew up in New York most of my life. I'm Jamaican, but I grew up in New York. We didn't have a lot of space. When it's summertime, we plant our stuff in Queens, and we freeze them. So I was able to eat a couple real food. And when I came to Florida, I was intentional to plant stuff on my yard. Because my whole thing is, any time of the year I go behind my house, I should be able to eat something from a tree. And I do that now. So we need to tell people, you might not like ramen, but get a little pot and plant a tomato, plant a pepper, because that's the only thing could certify. So we need to kind of let everybody know that, you know?
Brother, you're touching on a very, very important point. The first thing we should understand, there's 3 quick points. Number 1, this whole afternoon, today, it's about God pouring his life through you to the world. It's very important that you understand that. It's not about your health. It's not about losing weight. It's not about your diabetes or your blood pressure. What you're eating is about God pouring his health through Windermere to the world. Number 1. Number 2, we were told, Councils on Diets and Food, 150 years ago, guys, we were told, picture yourself as if you're in the Garden of Eden. We were made to live forever, okay? And you gotta go back there, no care how sophisticated planet Earth gets. You gotta go back there and interpret that for you, how you live. Now, the point that this brother is making is such a very good point. We have to go back and eat foods that are on the wild side. Take, for instance, carrots. God didn't make orange carrots. I don't know if you realize that. The original carrot is actually purple. I just want to let you know that the big tomato, okay, has a lot less nutrients than the little ones. Okay? Now, if you take something like the banana, they have changed the banana enough that they don't give it to monkeys anymore because the monkeys are now getting diabetes. Because the banana that we have today is not the banana that God created. All right, last point. Not far from here, Tampa Bay, there's a guy reversing stage 4 pancreatic cancer with sprouting. Thank you, sister. True one. Okay? Now, we might not be farmers, but everybody can do sprouting. Sprouting gives you the nutrients 10, 50, sometimes 100 times more And without this, you're going to visit these people sooner or later. God gave it to us, okay? So you start being as much as you possible, wherever you are, try to go back and get to the version of the wild, said, eat wild, as much as you can in its natural, unprocessed state. One point about ABC and their food. Processing is processing, even if it's born again. So the veggie meat is processed meat. It will kill you. Okay? Don't report me to your president. But I'm just being fact. In my house, Hortensia has never gone out and bought any Loma Linda or Worthington or anything like that. Everything in our house is cooked from scratch.
Can I say something? What Dr. Bryce said about knowing your foods it's a topic that a lot of times when I'm in Tallahassee, a lot of people, they'll probably foolishness I'm talking about because they don't know. And when I bring it to them and tell them, hey, this is fake, this is the real thing, like the bananas, and the bananas have seeds in it. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. So a lot of times we put up resistance to the truth. And the only way you could, I don't want to say to conquer them, the only way you can win them over is to live by the truth. And a lot of times they ask me, how do you find seeded watermelon in January? I tell them because the lifestyle that I live, God will always provide. I can't find any grapes, but I find grapes, seeded grapes. So the lifestyle that you live, it's not a 1 day or a 2 day. If you're not living it consistently, then it doesn't make any sense.
Just a point of time. It's 6:15 and we have a cooking class. So if you want to stay and ask questions, we're okay. But just so you'll be aware of the time. And so if you have more questions, make them short. And physicians who are answering, panelists who are answering, make them short as well so we can get as many questions answered as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Barnett had a question. He was going to pass, but if anybody has a question, he's willing to pass his question for a short question. We have like 4 minutes left for the question and answer session.
Okay, so I had a question, and it's based on what the coach said, and I also kind of wanted to, Dr. Bryce, to speak on that. The coach mentioned that those of us who grew up in the Caribbean and what we ate, I grew up in the Caribbean knowing that diabetes was a big problem. And that was before KFC and Pizza Hut, okay? So I've never understood that because the foods that we ate in the Caribbean, a lot of it was starchy foods. And that gave us diabetes, right? So when we speak about, eating natural foods, I think we have to be careful because, I can eat as much yam as I can, and that's sugar, right? Starch, which is sugar, right? But my question, and I just wanted to make that statement, but I had a question for Dr. Bryce, because from the last time. In the 3 blue zones, 2 of the 3 blue zones, one of them is a rice-based diet, the other one is a pasta-based diet. You agree or disagree? Well, one is in Italy, the other one is in Japan. So isn't one rice-based and the other one pasta type based? But those are in the blue zones. How do we, kind of get that, wrap our minds around that?
The answer to the Caribbean question, and the answer to the blue zone question is the same question, same answer. If you Google, for those of you Jamaicans, if you Google independence, 1962, and you look at the video and then look at the Jamaicans, every one of them, I'm going to use a word that if you're not Jamaican, you understand this word. They're MAGA. Okay? When I was a little boy, I lived in a little place called Thompson Pen. I had to walk from Thompson Pen to the center of Spanish Town, which is about 2-3 miles, to get the bus to be able to go to school. When I come home, I walk back home. To go to prayer meeting, 6:30 in the morning, I had to walk 3 miles to come to church, and then walk, do prayer meeting, walk back, water the plants, and then walk another 3 miles to go to school. It's the same answer for the blue zone. It's not just the pasta or the white rice. It's a total package. These guys, number one, most of them, I think there's only one that had a lot of meat. There's a lot of exercise, okay? A lot of plant-based, a lot of stress reduction. A lot of them were farm-based, where they were planting their foods themselves. Look here, where you have, this is what's good. In Loma Linda, it's neither rice-based or pasta-based. And they were still living to 100 in good minds. So it's the total package. It's the total package. Friends, the thing about it, the original Blue Zone was given to us as Seventh-day Adventists. If just, I'm going to finish. If just 30% of us would live the way we should live, you'll be shocked to the impact on the world.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Bryce. Does somebody else have a question? Oh.
I'm not really referring to any panelists in particular. I just really want to make a point in terms of what Elder Wallace spoke about with the starch and so on. I think one of the mistakes that our parents made back then, and it's still being done now, is that even in the Caribbean, we used to load up the plate with mostly starch. And the protein was just a little catch on the top, and then the vegetable was an afterthought. And even now, it's happening because the starch is the cheapest food. Even though when you talk to them back there, flour and rice is the cheapest thing. And the vegetable, which is important, they can't afford it, so they choose the belly full over nutrition. And that is one of the major factors for diabetes. So even now, even for us here, if we should balance the starch with the protein, because the body burns the starch to digest the protein, then that creates a balance. So the diabetes will be less.
Thank you, sister. We have 1 minute left.
Pastor had his hand up for a long time. Pastor Cross.
I think this.
No, he had his hand up
Herpy.
first.
A long time.
Pastor Cross had his hand up. Yes, he's had his hand up.
We were alternating sides.
No, he had his hand up before Elder Wallace.
This is for my brothers. My brother. As it relates to the PSA screening, what number would you recommend that it's time for your biopsy to be done?
So if the PSA is over 10, you definitely need to have a biopsy. If it's between the top range of the normal to 9, then you should see a urologist. But once it's over 10, straight to a biopsy.
I have to add to that. It is not just a number, but a trend. My brother-in-law never smoked. Every time somebody in the household get their tests, whether they're in Jamaica or wherever they are, I get a phone call and I get an email copy. And I noticed that year after year, his PSA was normal, but it was increasing. And we brought him over, and he had the exam included the ultrasound, and he had early stage prostate cancer. So it's not just the absolute number. You have to look at the trend. His doctor didn't notice that. I noticed it, that every year the number was going up, even though it was still significantly below normal. But every year it was going up. And he had a family history, so I said, let's intervene. And we caught it very early. In fact, he had HIFU. He didn't have to have no radiation or nothing like that.
Yeah, so the trend is important. However, if you're doing it for the first time and you're getting that particular number, 10, 9, above the normal range, you'll need to see a urologist. But Dr. Sinclair is correct. If it's in the normal range and it's climbing up each time you do it, then that's an indication that there's a growth. It needs to be evaluated.
Can I interject here? 10 PSA?
If you do your PSA right now and it's 10, then you need to see the urologist.
No, the number is actually 4. 4. It might be a different thing in Florida from what we do in Texas, but the numbers are, and I hate to be controversial, but this is so important with men. 4, anything under 4 is considered normal. Anything above 4 is considered abnormal. Okay, Saram is right. If you get a 3, okay, and the next day it's 3 point. Next year it's 4. That jump from 3 to 4 is very significant. Okay, now the important thing, PSA. There are some universities are now saying that we should stop checking PSA altogether. Believe it or not, okay? And rectal exam, we should stop. It's not a good test. I want to let you know that. You can get a 10 and you jump from a 2 to a 10 and it's not cancer. It's an infection, okay? So number one, make sure you're working with a good internist or primary care doctor because that's the first person you see. Okay? You're not seeing the urologist up first. So number one, it has to be screened. Number 2, not because you get a high number, it means that you have cancer, you should biopsy. Absolutely not. Because a lot of people get these false procedures that are not necessary. Sometimes put you on some antibiotics for 10 days, or usually I do 2 weeks, and you come back, the PSA of 10 is now 2.5. Okay, so there are different reasons. If you had sex the night before you did the PSA, the next day your PSA might be 6. You check it again in a month, and it's 2. So there are a number of different reasons why your PSA could be high. Okay, so the automatic jump into a biopsy just because it's a certain number, no. There are a number of stages before you get to that. The other thing is, at age 70, most doctors are not checking PSA at all. And the reason for that is everybody when you hit 70s, your PSA keeps rising. It doesn't mean that you need a biopsy, okay? Everybody at age 85, all the autopsies that you look at, the majority of them have prostate cancer. The issue is not whether you have prostate cancer or not. The issue is what are your percentages for it metastasizing? Okay? Most men, majority of the men will die with prostate cancer, but not from prostate cancer. So it's a very controversial area that must be managed between your primary care doctor and the urologist. If you get to the point where they say, yes, you need, for instance, there's what's called a Gleason score. They will jump to surgery when you have a Gleason score of 3 and 3 at 6. The chances of that metastasizing is extremely low. And you should not get in surgery at that. So you need to talk to somebody who is knowledgeable. The reason for that is you have that surgery, and if you don't get the right guy, you never see your wife again. You walk in with a depends for the rest of your life for a procedure that you didn't have to do. So forgive me for interjecting because this is so what was it? Now I want to let the men know there is a procedure called a pudendal spearing surgery, where a lot of urologists have to go back and get specially trained to do that procedure. Make sure you ask for it, okay? If you're diagnosed, make sure you ask yourself, what are my percentages for it metastasizing? Okay? The next question you ask, what kind of procedure are you going to do? Most black men get surgery. Most white men get radiation. Okay? You got to ask these questions. It's a very complicated issue. It's not just a simple night and day.
Thank you, Dr. Bryce. We are totally over time for the 20 minutes, but Brother Herbie has his hands up. This is going to be the last question. I'm going to ask the panel members to be brief with your answers. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to be quick as possible. Several things. Well, Dr. Bryce perfectly said, I've been in the medical field going on almost 40 years, and it is so important for you all to manage your care. Ask questions. Don't be afraid. They are not gods. We put them on pedestals, and they're not. Take care of yourself. Ask the questions. Educate yourself. Very important. The next thing is, I haven't heard anything really about socioeconomics. That plays a huge role, especially in the U.S. How is that addressed?
Are you referring to access to care?
Food.
Oh, food.
And even care. But food, most important, because you have certain areas, certain socioeconomic statuses of people that can't afford it, don't even know where to begin looking. So how is that addressed? Very important. I think it plays a huge role. So we have a great opportunity sitting here where we are, but what about the rest?
Thank you.
Folks, I'm sitting here and we are looking and we are hearing, and we're talking about a paradigm shift. This thing here needs a repeat. And to bring in this, and prime time. You know, we always put back these very important sessions that the church needs for an afternoon when some people have to go to work or gone and they are missing out on it. We're going to deal with this.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Brother Irby. Thank you for all your wonderful questions, and thanks to the panel members for all your wonderful answers.
So don't forget we have a cooking class just after the last prayer, and Sister Daphne is going to do the closing prayer for us tonight. And thank you all for attending this afternoon program.
Okay, I'm going to ask you all to assume a reverent posture, sitting, standing, kneeling, whatever is easiest for you, just a posture of reverence. You got to move. Dear Father God, thank you for this wonderful afternoon we have had. Dear God, we have been blessed. You have sent educators in different fields to educate us. Help us, dear God, as I said before, we'll apply to our lives, and we will look to thee for health, for strength. We will not leave thee out of our daily life, of our prosperity and our health plan, because you're the giver of all good gifts. You're the giver of health. You're the giver of prosperity, and we give thee thanks. Heavenly Father, as we move to the other area to watch this cooking class, may we learn, dear God, from it. May we apply it. May we try what Brother O'Neill will show us to cook. Thank you, dear God, for thy mercies. Protect us all home. Protect our family who are here and those who are not here. Remember all members of this church body. Remember the member of our sister church body, Emmanuel. Thank you for thy grace. Thank you for thy power. We praise thee, dear Father God, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Oh, remember tomorrow we have another session, another discussion session.
At 2.
At 2. It starts at 2.
So we're doing the financial wellness, as well as a talk on natural remedies and stress management. Yeah. 2 to 4:30.
2 to 4:30. Thank you.